welcome to the video. I am Nelly, aka Padoodle Pie Dolls, and in this video we're going to be doing basically like a full set, a custom full set of Penelope, which is a doll. Here, I'll put a picture here. Penelope. A doll that is sculpted and created by my friend Rosie from Teeny Tinkers. I got this doll a long time ago, a few months ago at this point, but I've just been really busy, so I haven't had time to get her video together, and I wanted it to be super special since this is my first full-size Teeny Tinkers girl. She is already finished at this point, so I don't want to show you, but she's right there. That's why I keep looking at her, because she's gorgeous. Yeah, so if you didn't catch it, I did an unboxing for her. That's already posted, so you can always find that video and watch it if you would like to see that whole process. This one is going to be, we're going to do her wig. We're going to do her jewelry. I don't think I'll show the process of making the jewelry just because it is so tiny and tedious. We're going to do a wig. We're going to do some jewelry. We're going to crochet her sort of cardigan thing. We're going to sew a dress. We're going to do her face. And that should be it. I'm buying some shoes for her. But yeah, hopefully you like it, and let's get right into the video.
So we're just jumping right into the wig. I didn't show the process of making the wig cap because it's always the same. But basically what I'm doing here is I'm starting from the bottom and I'm working my way around with these pre-made wefts that I have here that are from Viscose. I spread a little bit of glue and then I like to usually spread it out with my brush. And always, no matter what the hairstyle is, I always do all the way around the doll's head first. So going all the way around the outer edge, because that way no matter what the style looks like, I can part it in any direction and it looks good. So what I do now is I just start working my way up in layers. So you see here that I just put it straight across, and that's what I do all the way until I get up to the part line, because the part line I have to do something a little bit different. This part isn't really that confusing or that intricate, but the part line is going to be a little bit more difficult, so I'll spend some more time showing you how I do that. So here we are working on the part. I've gone all the way around, up and up in layers and waiting for each one to dry in between. So what I do first is I glue a weft going the opposite direction of where I want it to go. So for example, this one is going to be on the left side of her head, so I'm gluing it on the left side, but I'm putting it in the direction of the right side. And then that little space that's there in between, I glue another weft right on it so that there's no empty spaces, there's no blank spots, and she doesn't have a big bald spot. And it also kind of adds a little bit of thickness around the part, because this part, just for me, tends to be really thin. And then I'm able to comb it out, blend it all together, and once it is dry, you can see that I flip it over, and we have a gorgeous part. So for the other side, I do it a little bit differently. I put the glue directly on the head, because I've done it before where I put it on the weft, but then when I do that, it doesn't actually get right up to the edge of the part line where I want it. So I put it on the head and then I spread it where I want it to go and really like dig it sort of underneath that original weft. That way when I push the hair in there, there's no empty spaces. It's able to fill that gap. So here you can see with my nail, I'm really pushing it into the glue and right up next to that first weft. And then that way it looks like a real hair part and there isn't a huge gap in between. So for her haircut, I am following one of Brad Mondo's tutorials on YouTube to try to figure out how to do it.
This measurement. It doesn't even reach her ponytail, so I'm just gonna cut off a tiny bit just because I'm scared. I'm gonna cut off, make sure that it's forward. Okay.
I was genuinely so nervous for this. I've never tried a hairstyle for a doll that isn't just a standard straight across cut or like pigtails or something. This is my first time trying to do a nice haircut, and you can just hear my nervousness.
Okay, here we go. Just gonna cut off. Boom. Okay, I did it. Release. Penelope, let's see how your hair is doing. I'm gonna have to see all of the weft layers here. I pulled out this front bit, which is gonna be her bangs. And he said, is it even on both sides? Back. Okay, so I'm gonna pull this, go from the center part. Okay. He said over correction, so I'm gonna pull it forward. I'm gonna pull it this direction, and I'm gonna cut off, and then I'm cutting it like that. Oh my goodness! Oh my gosh! It looks good! It's really cute so far. Oh my goodness. It looks good. Okay, now I'm gonna curl it and follow his tutorial for like the direction to curl and stuff. But also I got my curling viscose wig tips from Pablo from Hopeful Creations. He makes the most gorgeous wigs.
Okay, I know she looks a little bit like Reba here. Her curls are too big, but after brushing it and handling it for a few days, it evens out and it looks really good, I promise. So I'm just gonna leave it like this for now.
So I'm using this fabric that I also used for my Bigfoot doll, Bernadette. And I like that it's like very thin, so it has a nice flow to it. I want to do a simple A-line dress with a tie back for her. So this will be the tie. I'll just cut it in half after folding it together like so, and then sewing down to make a strap. And then these are the two side pieces, the front, center, two back. I cut it intentionally because I wanted the patterns to be in specific spots. So this was like a very intentional cut for this. And then these will be the shoulder straps for her. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sew along the two side seams to complete the front piece. And this is meant to be kind of fitted, but a little oversized.
So something that I did forget to mention is that when I make my patterns, I cut it on the sewing line, not the cut line. So there is no seam allowance. But this way, when you trace it onto the fabric, like you can see here, that's the sew line. And that way you don't have to worry about maintaining a consistent seam allowance. You just sew on the line you drew, and it's a perfect fit, and it's form fitted to the body. And I do this especially for anything that is meant to fit somewhat tightly onto the body. Just makes it a lot easier. It takes out all the guesswork. I have included a link to the PDF pattern that I made for this dress, so if you want to use it, just keep that in mind.
I'm going to sew these pieces together, and then I will get back to you. So I've sewn the front side pieces together, and now I'm going to take the back and sew the back on both sides. So I forgot to film this part, but what I did was I took this netting and I laid it good on the good side and pinned all around all the edges. And then I included the straps in that, so I had it folded over like this, had the straps in there, put the netting around, pinned it all the way around, and left a small opening right here so I could turn it inside out. This way it has clean edges everywhere, and especially because this fabric tends to fray a lot, this way when you're rubbing it, you're not actually rubbing this fabric here, so that it won't fray. And it's a net, it's a netting, so it's really thin and it's not going to add any bulk to the dress. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to top stitch this hem and then sew up this bottom seam only up to about right here, and then add the Velcro right here on the sides. This is supposed to be just sort of like a very simple A-line dress, and most of the like I guess like pizzazz from it is just in the patterning of the fabric. But yeah, so I really like the way the patterns turned out. This side is a little bit off from this side, but honestly, I don't think it's the hugest deal in the world. I think it's going to look very good on her. So I'm going to sew up this bottom seam right here, hem the bottom, and try it on her before I add on the Velcro. Alright, so I turned it inside out, and I sewed up this back seam, and then I ironed it flat, and I kept the iron going to iron this side flat back as well, but not this side. And the idea is that the Velcro will go here, and that since this side is not flat, it will be able to go right over. The Velcro will be able to go right over it like this, and then from the
outside, the seam should look pretty seamless. And again, this dress is meant to be a little bit big. That's why there are ties on the waist, so that it can be adjusted to fit her as needed. Okay, so here it is with the Velcro. I'm just gonna turn it right side out. Oh, I probably should have Velcroed it first so it didn't stick to everything. Okay. I decided not to top stitch this top just because I like the way that it is right now. And yeah, and you can tighten it to make it even more fitted. I tend to do this whenever I have ties, because if you look, they stick up. If you take a iron and just squish it down, it's not very hot right now. I can touch it. It's not going to work great. Let me let it heat up. But even then, you can see that it's already staying a bit better. Oh, it looks so good. It looks so good. Okay, so if I were to make this dress again, I would definitely make the straps a little bit shorter. I didn't actually even measure the straps. So now I'm going to work on it's going to be like a long bell sleeve with like a tie right here. And it's going to be crocheted actually. So I'm going to work on that. So I have been fighting myself over this doll because I thought I had a very clear vision that I wanted her to be like a foresty fairy thing. So I made her dress. You know, you guys saw me making her dress, and this is her dress. And then I started working on the crochet top because I wanted her to have a simple dress and a nice crochet top over it, like a bell sleeve top. And I started doing this like foresty green color changing one, and it just wasn't working, and I thought maybe it was too light, so I dyed that. That's why this is a little more of a teal. It's a bit darker, so I dyed it. And because it has the lining here that doesn't take the dye, I'm not really too concerned about it rubbing. So I dyed the dress, and I was like, okay. And then I kept going, still didn't like how it looked. Then I realized it's like the colors that I wasn't into. And then I was trying to think of like colors that go with like forest green, and then I thought like maybe plum, and then I was like, wait a minute. Plum's not a foresty green color, but that color is hitting it. That's what I want. That's when I realized I didn't want forest colors, I wanted jewel tones. So then I made this top. Oh my god. This is the back and this is the front. This is the top that I made. And I'm obsessed with it. So you know, like hexagon, like granny square cardigans. I'll put a picture of it here. I saw somebody on TikTok take a hexagon square cardigan, and instead of sewing it into like the L shape, they just flipped it the other direction and made it into a bell sleeve. And so I tried it, and it's like cinched in at the waist perfectly. It has the top, but it's nice and full here. Oh my goodness. And I'm just obsessed with it. Now I'm thinking that because I love these colors, I'm thinking I need to dye her dress again, because looking at this, I kind of want this to be more of a, oh, hi flower. No, thank you. Now I'm thinking I want to dye this an even darker color, like maybe more of like a green to go with the like little bits of green that are showing in the top. So I'm going to dye her dress again for the second time. Put her away. I also crocheted this bandana to go on her hair. Printed out some eyes for her. I printed them smaller than the ones I already had, and they were still too big. So I'm going to print some even smaller, and hopefully those will be the right size. I'm very excited now because now I know exactly where I want to go with this, and she's so cute. Okay, I'm going to go dye this dress again. Alright, it is finally time to get started on the face up. What I'm doing first is just laying some undertones, some blues up on the forehead and in other areas where the skin is particularly thin on a person. I like following videos by Jackie O, and also one of Rosie's tips that she gave was to look at sort of pictures of like the color disbursement on the skin. So that's kind of what I did here for this one. But I'm not going for hyper realistic, so I'm not adding too many. I mainly just do a little bit of a yellowish tint, some pink, and some blue. And then I add on the blush in the cheeks. This isn't the gonna be like all that we have for the blush because I go a little bit blush crazy. But this is just sort of like for the undertones, the fact that there is blood in the cheeks. So it's gonna be a little bit rosy there. And then I also add a bit to the chin. I like to add it to the tip of the nose, to the middle of the forehead, and for dolls, especially when they have pointy ears, to the tips of the ears as well. One of my favorite things to add shading to for doll face-ups is actually the ears, because I think it just adds so much dimension and realism to the doll. So here I'm going in just adding some shadows in the ear, just really following the shape of the sculpt because it'll tell you where the shadows should be. Same with inside the nose. So you can see already between the two nostrils which one looks more like finished, more realistic, because these aren't big enough to have actual shadows. So we kind of have to create those shadows artificially where they would be naturally in a larger face. So kind of like what I talked about with adding those artificial shadows, I do so the same thing here next to the nose and around the eye socket. It's kind of like contouring, except I'm not trying to change the shape of the nose at all. I'm just trying to accentuate what's already there. So I'm following the natural shadows and places where they would be on the face. That way you can see these details more when you look at it versus having to look at it really close up or shine a light on it directly in order to see the sculpting. I like adding the lip color really early on because to me that sort of brings the whole thing to life. Before that they look pale and sickly almost, but once you add in that color they look so alive and happy. So this is definitely not the final color she's going to be with. I'm hoping to get it a little bit darker. This is just sort of so that I can see her face and just really like get started on building the shadows in the lip. And then I go in next layer. This is the next after being sprayed, by the way, and I'm darkening it up. She does have teeth, but I'm gonna go in there and paint those white anyway, so I'm kind of ignoring them for now and just sort of adding the shadows where I know that I want them to be on the lips. More blush. Maybe I have blush blindness, but I just really like when they have super rosy cheeks and little rosy noses, kind of where they look almost a little bit cold, but obviously not like frostbitten. I just think that it's really cute, especially on magical characters. So you're probably going to see me add blush a few more times after this as well. And also Pearl powders. I love those. And I'm adding some veins. Again, I learned this from Jackie O. It just sort of creates depth to the face. And then I'm also going to go in with a white pencil to start filling in the teeth a little bit. But I have to go back on there with paint just because it is so hard to get into little crevices without messing up the rest of the lips. And I was a bit too nervous to try any harder. And now I'm starting with the actual makeup. For the eye makeup, I'm going for a blue or like a turquoise and a plum. I'm kind of inspired here by 70s eyeshadow, looking at some pictures off screen, but I'm not trying to mimic anything exactly. I'm not the best at doing makeup. I can't even do my own makeup. So I'm really happy with how this turned out just by looking at the photos. I've never done something this complicated before, so I'm very proud of this makeup look overall. So now I'm going in with a dark brown pencil just to add in some shadows that were lost a little bit by all of the color there. So now I have this burgundy pencil that I'm using just to add some final details to the lips before going in with the teeth. And I'm also using that pencil and a light pink pencil to add some details to the waterline. Bottom lashes have been the bane of my existence for so long. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but I can never get them to look right. So I'm doing very minimal bottom lashes here, and then just hoping that the color sort of blends it in and makes it look not too bad. So we're starting on the eyebrows. The way that I do it is I do kind of 2 dots, one on each side, to really gauge where I want them to start. And then I move the color outward from there with my brush. And then I go in with a kneaded eraser afterwards and erase it to create the shape that I want. And then I seal it, and that is it for my base layer of eyebrows. I can go in afterwards in other layers to add dimension and hairs and things like that to it. But in one layer, I get the shape, and I seal it off so that I don't have to worry about it again. It's there, ready to go for details to be added. Here I'm just adding a little white to highlight the brow bone right underneath the eyebrow now that I have the shape that I know that I want. And then I'm going in and adding a bunch of freckles because I can't resist myself and I love freckles on dolls. I promise I am not adding more blush. I am actually just adding Pearl X powders here. So this is just like a micro glitter that's just going to make her a little bit shiny. I like to add it to the cheeks, to the tips of the ears, basically anywhere that I have blush. And then I'm putting a tiny little bit of it too here on her eye makeup, just to make it sparkle. And you can see what she looks like with those Pearl X powders. It's just so magical. I love it so much. So I'm just going in with some final details, some highlighting in the corners of the eyes, the eyebrow hairs, which I sort of ombre out a little bit from darker to lighter, and just a few other little details added to the face, because at this point she is almost finished. So after adding in those last shadows on the lips, I'm doing the most nerve-wracking part, which was painting in the teeth. So what I did was I used a wet pencil or a wet paintbrush with my watercolor pencil. This way, if I made a mistake, I could easily erase it with some water. It was very nerve-wracking, but it didn't turn out as bad as I thought it would be. I was able to paint the teeth with very minimal mistakes. So with that, her face is basically done. I just go in and add one more layer of Pearl X powders while I spray this layer, because why not? And then I'm going to add some gloss. So this is the final look before gloss. I'm going to add gloss to her waterline, lips, tips of the ears, and nose.
So I have been trying to print a pair of eyes for her, and I saw the eyes Rosie gave me, and I was like, oh, the ones that I have are only slightly too big, so I'll just print some slightly smaller. They were still too big. So I printed a second batch slightly smaller, still too big. And I just messaged Rosie and I was like, what size eye does she wear? And she told me, and I measured I actually measured this time and I got the perfect eyes. And so I have 2 sets of each, and I have some with a slightly smaller pupil and a slightly larger pupil. They don't look that different here, but there's definitely, I guess you can see the difference now. Especially on the doll, there's a huge difference. So I'm going to do all 4 pairs. I'm not sure quite on what color I want to do for her eyes. I'm leaning towards green, but I might do brown. So I'm gonna do 1 green, 1 brown of each and see how I like them, try them on her, and go from there. So yeah, that's what we're gonna work on now.
So my first step for eyes is to just do a basic base coat, 1 solid color. And then when I'm making my eyes, I actually like to leave the brackets on, the things that attach it to the 3D printer, because then it can lay flat and it just makes it easier for painting and drawing and doing the UV resin. So I'll remove those later. So I do the first base color, and for these ones I'm doing green. For the brown ones it's the exact same. I'm just doing a base coat of brown, and then I let those dry completely before moving on to the next step. So the next thing I do is adding another shade to about half of the eye. There isn't really a top or a bottom at this point, so just half of the eye I add another shade of whatever color it is. So here I'm adding more of a forest green, and then with the brown I'm going to be adding another dark brown. And then I take a lighter color and I go through and I start adding little lines moving outward from the center pupil. Some of the lines are going to go all the way to the edge, some of them will be half lines. I'm trying to make it inconsistent just because that's sort of what actual eyes look like in real life. And then once again I do the exact same with the brown, just with a different shade, so I'm not going to show you the same thing twice. So after I finish with the lighter color, I go in and do the exact same thing with the darker color, and that's basically the end of the eye. I do like to go in and add a bit of metallic depending on the color of the eye. So here for both brown eyes and green eyes, I like to add a bit of gold metallic paint to the eye in order to just make it a little bit shiny. If I was doing blue eyes or even like gray eyes, I would do silver, but for these ones I like to add gold. So now I'm going in to do the pupil. This part is always very nerve-wracking because I don't want to mess up the eyes that I worked so hard on. So I start with a tiny dot in the middle and I just work my way around in a circle. The way that I sculpted these eyes, the bottom of the, I guess like well that I'm painting in is actually flat and it's the size of a pupil that I want. That way it works as a really good guide, and it also helps to create less bubbles when I do pour in the resin. So at least I have that going for me, where it can help me try to keep the eyes consistent across them all, because you don't want a pair where one pupil is really big, one pupil is really small, and then she'll look like she has a concussion. So trying to keep it consistent is the hardest part for me. So after spraying the eyes with Mr. Super Clear, I go in with the first round of resin, and I do teeny tiny little dots at first. I like to do a lot of layers, just really thin layers, because I always get bubbles, but when I do a lot of little layers, I have way less bubbles. And on these eyes, I actually didn't have any bubbles at all, which I was really proud about. So this is just the first layer, and then while that's curing, I do the second layer. Basically, while each eye is curing, I'm working on the next pair of eyes. So this way, I never have nothing to do, because then I would get bored. So I skipped a few layers because I don't want to show you me doing the same thing over and over again. But now I am basically doing the doming layer, which is the very last one on the top. You fill up the eyes until it creates a little dome. Then after that's cured, I'm going to go in and remove all of those supports that I left on there. So basically, at this point, the eyes are finished. Now it is time to put the eyes in the head, which is one of my favorite steps, because oh my gosh, even just putting it in for a few seconds She just looks so beautiful. Oh my goodness, looking at it now, I love it so much. So I basically just wrap a little worm of the sticky tack around the eye and place it in and just wiggle it around and move it until it's in a spot that I like. And then I try to make the other side even.
She's so cute. She's so cute. She's so cute. Come on.
That was just my excitement to show my boyfriend her face, because look at this face. This is the best face up I have ever done, and I'm just so happy with her. And now it's time for her final dress up. And with that, she is all dressed, and it is time for the final reveal.
She is finished. Oh, there goes my cat. She is finished. Here she is. Oh my goodness, she is gorgeous. I'm just really happy with how she turned out. This is, I probably already said it, but this is, I think, the best face up I have ever done. Let me see if I can. Her clothes, the colors, these are not colors that I typically work with. Like, these are, I don't think I have ever done a doll with like specifically jewel tones, but she's just so regal looking, like her magical looking. She just needed it. I'm kind of obsessed. Like, this may be my new favorite color palette. I'm really happy with the way her belt turned out, with her jewelry, her outfit, this little bandana that I crocheted. I love the different textures that she has. So like this dress, even though it's a plain dress, is like textured. Same with like she has the belt and the crochet. This is a bit thinner of crochet up here, so it just adds to sort of the richness I feel of her. I am obsessed with this sculpt. I love this body. Rosie did an amazing job. Oh my goodness. I had so much fun working on her. It was a really long process because I did just start a new job. I am officially a special education teacher, which is great. It is my first year though, so on top of starting a new school year, I'm starting it for the first time, and I'm starting a new job, so I have to do all the new job stuff too that comes with it. So it's just been very overwhelming, but yeah, she is finally done. I'm just very excited for her and for everybody to see her. Let me know what you think. Show Rosie some love if you don't already follow her. I assume you probably already do if you found this video, but if you do not, show her some love. She is the one that created this beautiful sculpt, this beautiful doll, and I'm gonna keep the name Penelope just because that's the name that Rosie gave her and I like it. So, Penelope. Yeah, thanks everybody. See you next time.